Hello, kids. It's the Matt Murphy Radio Show underway for another day on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Pleased to have you with us this afternoon. It is the Libertarian Lunch on Super Talk. It is 12:05. May I be the first to say good afternoon. Thanks for being here. I mean, you can tell me in my ear to do it. Don't come at me. I'll shiv you. Thank you for being here. It's 12:05, and this is our Tuesday, October 31st, Halloween edition of the Matt Murphy Show. It's episode 445. I'm pleased you've joined us. Whatever time you're able to give us, I'm certainly appreciative of that. Aaron Gulbranson will be here at 1:05. I'll mispronounce his name until he corrects me. He'll talk about a myriad of topics to include some of the local reaction to some of our local and state officials participating in pro-Palestinian, what some would call pro-Hamas organized events over the weekend. We will discuss that at 1:05 this afternoon. We'll talk generally about the conflict overseas and some other matters involving the state of Tennessee, to include human and child trafficking. I never got to the Kamala Harris interview on 60 Minutes over the weekend, and it's just delicious enough, and it's Halloween, so, if you wanted to scare yourself, contemplate the fact that this woman is one heartbeat away from the presidency, and that heartbeat ain't very strong considering Joe Biden as he attempts to gallivant around the country and make himself seem vibrant in advance of the 2024 election cycle. So that's going on as well. We've got Super Talk TV up and running, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. The F&M Bank chat line is up and running as well. You're invited to participate in that on episode 445. Young Bell K is the executive producer of the broadcast. He sits behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. He also titles the television episodes, and today's title is
The Matt Murphy Show. He's mad as hell, and, well, that's how we know it's a weekday.
That's true. I'm mad as hell, and I will continue to take it for as long as you knew it. And it pays. Right. 615-737-9986. If you'd like to be a part of the show, either via Super Text or the Super Talk lines, they are up and available. There's a lot of them. I think there's 12, but I'm not really sure. I don't know that we've ever filled them. We will do some Halloween stuff. Why am I the only person that dressed up? Actually, I'm not dressed up. I decided to go for Halloween. You've
gone retro.
Well, yeah, I've decided to come as my last job. This was the job that I had. This was the job that I had in Alabama right before I got out and got to Nashville. So, what's up?
There's a reason he had to leave Alabama.
That's exactly right. So, I'll for those watching on Super Talk TV, hold on, I'll give you the I'll give you the full view. I got to give you the full view here. So, there's this. That.
Alabama Department of Corrections.
Yeah, there you go. And then you got this. That's a little tatted up. It says Talk Life on the fingers. Talk
Instead of Thug Life. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, you like that?
I love that.
And little teardrops. That's love and that's hate. Right there. Love.
Well, the teardrop means you've killed somebody on the inside.
Mm-hmm. 2 teardrops.
So if that's the case,
2 teardrops.
If I ever go to prison, I'm getting one of those tattooed on.
Like right before you get like 14 on one side of your face. It's like, come at me, bro. Anyway, we'll have some fun with Halloween today. Hope you're having fun with Halloween. Sadly, Halloween used to be a children's holiday, and now it's been taken over by adults as an excuse to get drunk.
Which we don't need an excuse for that. We're adults. We can do what we want.
Well, have you noticed that that's what we do? Have you noticed the holidays that have grown in popularity over the last 25 years are all the holidays where basically the general premise for many, many Americans is to go get drunk. Cinco de Mayo, St. Patrick's Day, and Halloween are all 3 holidays that have grown exponentially in popularity in the last 25 years because it's just a big drunk fest.
Sort of like the Georgia-Florida game.
Man, oh man, what a great game. Thank you for that. Puts me in a good mood
There
just to
you
be
go.
reminded of it. I rewatched it.
Did you
night.
seriously?
Yes.
Was it
Of course
just
I
as
did.
good the second time around?
Well, because we were socializing and we were in a group of people on Saturday, I wasn't really able to I
Get the details of
I
it.
like to sit down and actually watch the game. So I wasn't able to do that. Just hit the highlights, but watch that. I wouldn't have watched it if we'd lost. I'll tell you that. But considering that we did not, I enjoyed the festivities very much. Thank you. So I hope you're having a big time. We will. I asked you yesterday if you get trick or treaters, and you don't. So you'll just hole up in your house, and that's about it.
Correct.
We lived in a house for 13 and a half years that did not get trick-or-treaters. And every year we thought it was the year that we would get trick-or-treaters, and we never got trick-or-treaters.
You always had candy ready?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know my wife, of course.
Yeah, good point.
So this is our first Halloween in this place, and we're all excited about the trick-or-treaters. And I don't know why, because we have dogs, and dogs get annoyed, and dogs bark. By the way, the dogs did not like me in orange.
Why?
I don't know. I put on this outfit, and they didn't like it.
They remember how violent you used to be when you were orange.
Maybe so. They remembered what life was like when I was in the joint. So, yeah. So, I don't know. I guess the dogs go out back, and we'll go out front. I think we're sitting in the driveway. I think that's the idea. But anyway, I'll be wearing this. I also have a mask that goes with this and a machete. And I think we've had 2 votes on whether or not I get to keep the machete when the kids come up. 1 vote is yes and 1 vote is no. And I'll let you guess who is who in that regard.
Well,
so,
and let's be honest. Erica's vote carries a little more weight.
Well, yeah, because, there's not a lot of hills to die on anymore.
Yeah.
Candy corn, yes. Candy corn, no. If you're doing candy.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm a big candy corn.
If you say no, you're not a real human being.
Well, I mean, I think the people that say no, they just like chocolate. They don't like other candies. If you like sugar-based candies, I don't know why you would not like candy corn. I don't really understand why candy corn gets the crap that candy corn gets. And I'm very much a defender. Candy corn cannot speak for itself. Do you know why? Because candy corn does not have a mouth. But I do. And right before I eat it, I will defend it. I will defend
and then
it.
kill it.
And then I will kill it. I especially like to eat it in the colors, right? You eat like the little white part.
Bite a little piece off at a time.
Yeah. And just get all the white off and then get all the orange off and then the yellow. And
it's almost like carving with your teeth.
It's fun. Good
Sculpting.
stuff. Or take them and turn them upside down and then stick them on your existing teeth, and they're like little colored fangs.
Done that too.
Yeah, sure. Who doesn't love some candy corn? Come on, people. Love a little candy corn. We do have serious matters to discuss before we get into the fun and frivolity of Halloween, and we'll sprinkle that in as well. It is, we discussed this to a certain degree yesterday, and I want to re-up it today. And I want to make sure, because I received a number of emails, and I think several of the emailers were intentionally mischaracterizing my position. I don't want anybody to die, but everyone's going to. I don't want anyone to die, but everyone is going to. I also certainly do not want anyone to die at the hands of other people, but people are going to. However, there are a lot of Americans and a lot of people worldwide that are intentionally mischaracterizing the nature of the conflict that's going on in the Middle East. Let me reiterate my position on where America should be on all of this. This is not America's fight. It is Israel's fight. We give plenty of money annually to Israel and plenty of technology annually to Israel that they can handle themselves. They don't need any additional money to handle this. Now, they'll take it if we are to give it. So there are 3 ways for the United States of America to support Israel. Now, there are plenty of Americans that don't want to support Israel, which is a frightening aspect of all of this, and I'll get to more on that in a moment. There are 3 ways that America can help. Number 1, militarily, like actually sending troops and joining the war and fighting against the enemy alongside the IDF. Number 2, money and materially, either through actual cash money in order to fund the war or through materials, which is like cash. And I don't believe that they need any further assistance in that regard. Not for this conflict. Not if we're willing to commit to number 3. And the third way to aid the Israelis in all of this, in the 3.5 weeks that it's been going on now, is to support them from afar and insist that this is their fight against their enemy and no other country is to get involved in it. In order for that to work, other countries have to believe that we mean it. And this is where you have a certain level of gamesmanship. And this is where you have to have a certain level of bravado. You know, they called Ronald Reagan crazy because Ronald Reagan had it. They called George W. Bush a cowboy because George W. Bush had a certain level of it. Not a lot, but a certain level. He was kind of a neocon with Cheney behind him. A war hawk. Donald Trump certainly had it, although while Donald Trump had it, he was steadily and slowly extracting us from exterior conflicts, which I appreciate because I think we were in far too many of them. I don't know that this guy's got it, which is why number 3 scares me. Because I don't think Joe Biden scares anyone. And we saw evidence of that yesterday when yet another United States installation in Syria was attacked by a third-party entity connected to Iran. Now, they don't do these things absent the blessings of Iran. And if Iran was actually afraid of us, or Iran, is it Iran or Iran? I've been doing this 25 years.
Iran.
Is it Iran?
Yeah.
Iran is...
That's a flock of seagulls sign.
Iran is what I did from the cops, which is what led me into this outfit. Iran. They're not. Does anyone think that Iran is afraid of us? I mean, Joe Biden's the guy that walked back Donald Trump's hard line. Joe Biden's the guy that was vice president when Barack Obama was handing over billions of dollars, crates of money. I mean, literally crates of money. Joe Biden's the guy that just released $6 billion of Iranian cash on the premise and promise that we would get 5 of our individuals back and we would give them 5. A 5-for-5 swap, but you also had $1.25 billion per prisoner going to the Iranians, which they said, oh, yeah, this will go for humanitarian aid. And no one believed them. No rational person believes them. And I don't think they believe the United States of America when we say that we've got Israel's back. Maybe, but I don't think so. So that's the primary way that we ought to be supporting Israel. And it's a simple concept, but you have to believe it, and you have to believe in it. And you have to affect it in such a way where the countries that you're talking to believe you as well. All of that to say, we have a lot of people in the United States of America. We have a lot of individuals in official capacities and government roles in the United States of America that are insisting that we commit to a ceasefire. You know who's not one of them? And I said yesterday, and that's where I'm going today, pro-ceasefire. If you believe in a quote-unquote ceasefire, then you are pro-Hamas, whether you know it or not, because that's what they want. It is a part of their calculation that a majority of the world, including the United Nations and the Pope and whoever, the Pope came out and said that we need a ceasefire. The Pope. If Hamas had the ability, they would have the Pope's head on a pike. And I understand the broader concepts of love before hate and all of those things. And I almost have an appreciation for the concept of turning the other cheek. But you only got 2 of them. But you know who's not? And this kind of surprised me. Hillary Rodham Clinton. The former SOS and never will be president, Hillary Clinton, pushed back on liberal activists demanding a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, saying that such an agreement would be a gift to Hamas. And friends, I don't think I need to tell you, if you're a regular listener of the Matt Murphy Show for any length of time, hell, just a day or two, I don't think I need to tell you that there are not a lot of times that I would suggest to you that Hillary Rodham Clinton and Matt Murphy agree on anything. But we agree on this. The former presidential candidate made the remarks at an event this past Thursday, according to the Jerusalem Post, saying people who are calling for a ceasefire now don't understand Hamas. It's not possible. She's right. My goodness, when people like John Fetterman and Hillary Rodham Clinton get it, I mean, I get the Fetterman connection. Obviously, he has a Jewish connection, but Hillary Rodham Clinton gets it. She said it would be a gift to Hamas because they would spend whatever time there is in a ceasefire rebuilding their armaments, creating stronger positions to be able to fend off an eventual assault by the Israelis. Now, we're entering the fourth week of engagement against Hamas after the terrorist group invaded the country and killed 1,400 people, firing thousands of rockets at residential areas and butchering civilians.
I think you're discounting the possibility that Hamas has dirt on her.
Yeah. Well, let's see. You know what? No, I disagree. If Hamas had dirt on her,
They'd already be dead.
They'd already be dead. People that have dirt on the Clintons, they end up dead, man. Hamas knows. What is fascinating to me are the number of people that are saying that Israel should not engage in this conflict because they know they're going to win. And the amount of people that are suggesting that the Palestinians deserve to be free. I have been asking you for weeks, what does free Palestine mean? And I have yet to get an appropriate answer because Palestine is not occupied. There are no Israelis in Gaza. There are no Jews in Gaza. There are no Jews to speak of in the West Bank. Yet here we are. Pro-ceasefire equals pro-Hamas. And that's my take on where we are with this. Now, I will update you on some of the many, many universities around the country that seem to be quite anti-American and certainly anti-Israeli, to include Yale. The independent student newspaper, the Yale Daily News, the oldest college daily newspaper in the United States of America, issued an editor's correction and note on an Israeli column because the column claimed that Hamas raped women. I'll give you more details on this coming up in a moment. Take your telephone calls as well as you desire. 615-737-9986. Just getting underway on The Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Let's talk about your health care. Let's talk about yourhealthplanman.com. We talked to Pat last week, and I was so excited to discuss with him the concepts of open enrollment, to talk about your health insurance, and to find out if you're looking for coverage, what you can do to get better coverage. Don't go online for quotes. Just don't. It's bad news over there because you get endless calls from call centers. They will not stop. They will not stop bugging you. Instead, call the Your Health Plan Man team of experts with over 25 years combined experience. They are like concierge for healthcare, right? I like to say it that way because it sounds fancy. But they know what they're talking about, and they shop a field of different health insurance providers. They don't stick with one provider. They've got a lot of different providers to choose from. And with that in mind, they can provide sound advice for you in your health insurance needs. Their Freedom of Choice plan lets them pick your doctors or lets you pick them, and it's 30 to 60% lower than the cost of Obamacare. The monthly premiums are independent of your income, so there are no surprise bills. If you pay for your own health insurance, or if you're uninsured, or if you're on COBRA, or if your employer insurance coverage is just too expensive, call your health plan man at 855-4PLAN-MAN, 855-4PLAN-MAN, or better yet, go to Your Health Plan Man, spell it all out, yourhealthplanman.com. That's yourhealthplanman.com. Tell them I sent you. It's Halloween. You're saying that to scare me, right? Is that what just happened there?
No, it kind of makes me happy. So
I had to take off my skull cap, my orange skull cap, because it was hot and it was making my ears hot, and I was getting a little hot under the collar. And I don't get mad on the radio, so I don't. This isn't mad. It's like that old joke. You're going to be here when John.
I'm not saying this is mad, but I'm saying you get mad on the radio.
No, it's the old. The first time I heard this joke was Brother Dave Gardner. If you don't know who Brother Dave was, you're not cultured. He was a great Southern. The best way I can describe him is a Southern beatnik comedian from the 1960s. Southern beatnik comedian from the 1960s. My grandmother loved him. I still have the albums. Brother Dave Gardner. And he was the first one that I heard tell the Big John joke. Have you heard the Big John joke? Are you going to be here when John gets here? Guy buys a house. He's told the house is haunted. It's Halloween. This is kind of Halloween-y. Guy buys, and it's up. And by the way, if you go look this up, it is a different time, and he does some vocal characterizations of the young boy that are stereotypical. I'm just warning you. Just letting you know. Don't want you to be shocked. But he does kind of a Little Black Sambo type voice for the kid. But the joke, the premise of the joke is the guy wants to make sure his house isn't haunted. And so he hires this little kid to go spend the night in the house to make sure the house isn't haunted. And so the kid gets there, and he builds a little fire in the fireplace, and he's cooking him up something to eat and drinking some pop. And a little guy about 12 inches tall walks in. Little guy, about 12 inches tall. Guy's sitting there drinking a little Coca-Cola. And the little fella says, "You going to be here when John gets here?" And he goes, "Man, I don't believe in you. You're a haint. I don't believe in ghosts. Get out of here." And he throws the Coke bottle at him, pops him, knocks him out of the room. About 3 hours later, door opens. Eek! And by the way, this joke is about 20 minutes long, so I'm not going to do all of that. And a little guy about 3 feet tall walks in. A little munchkin, a little dwarf. Says, hey, buddy, you going to be here when John gets here? He goes, "Man, I don't believe in you. Get out of here." Threw a piece of firewood at him, knocked him out of the room. About midnight, clock strikes midnight. Dong, 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 dong. Eek! And got a normal-sized guy, about 6 feet tall, walks in. "You going to be here when John gets here?" I said, "Get out of here. I told you guys. I'm not messing with you. I'm going to make my money and spend all night in this place." He finally falls asleep. About 3 o'clock in the morning, he hears the boom, 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 boom coming up the steps. Oh, man. And he hears the door slowly open. And this creature has to dip into the room. 9 feet tall, hairy, clothes tattered. And the creature looks at him and says, "You gonna be here when John gets here?" And the little kid says, "Man, if you ain't John, I'm gone." Hey! No! Oh, well. I thought it was a good joke. So I ain't John, is the point of the joke. It's 12:31 on Super Talk 99.7 WT. PhD weight loss has helped me lose over 36 pounds. I get to weigh in this Friday. I feel good about my weight loss. I went through a few bumps in the road the last several weeks. I'll be honest with you. What with parties and celebrations. My birthday was about a month ago, and there was some out-of-town activity going on. But Rachel, my nutritionist and dietitian, helped me navigate it through it. I didn't gain any of my weight back, and now I'm back ready to get to my goal weight. That's what it's all about. They are there to assist you, and the plan simply works. All you've got to do is stick with it, and it is simple to stick with. If I can do it, I know that you can too. There's never been a better time. Let's get in front of the holidays. I understand that Thanksgiving is around the corner. I understand that Christmas is beyond Thanksgiving, and I understand that most people just give those 2 months up to weight loss. Well, don't do it. Did you know most men can lose 3 to 5 pounds per week, and most women can lose 2 to 3 pounds a week? That's the proven program that Dr. Ashley Lucas created many, many years ago. If you don't get within 5 pounds of your goal weight by the time you end your program, they continue to coach you for free until you do. It is called the PhD Guarantee. Can't ask for more than that. Go to myphdweightloss.com. That's myphdweightloss.com to find out more. Let them know that I sent you to myphdweightloss.com. In my defense, I think the joke's funnier if it is 20 minutes long and when someone else is telling it. 1236 Supertalk 99.7 WTN, the Matt Murphy Show. Matt and you. Supertalk TV is up and running. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. I'm getting complimented on my new facial tattoos. Thank you. Jason asked if I had a spider web tattoo on my elbow. Well, that's for me to know and for you to find out.
Nobody would see it if you did.
That's right. Never mind. There's an old joke about tattooing mom on your. Never mind. I tried a joke and it didn't work, so I'm going to move on from it. Many of you commenting on the Palestinian situation, and I want to speak to 6447, and I would love it if 6447 would call me so we could have this into a discussion format. You're welcome to call during the Libertarian Lunch as well, 615-737-9986. 6447 says, nobody believes we're going to stand with Israel because of the simple fact every other president in history, besides Donald Trump, they said support Israel. The U.S. Embassy would be in Israel, but Donald Trump is the only president to actually put the U.S. Embassy in Israel. He moved it from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. It was always in Israel. He moved it from Tel Aviv to Israel, or to Jerusalem. And then 6447 goes on to say Palestine is not its own country. It's actually a part of Israel. They just say that it's Palestine. There's no actual territory with borders definitively drawn. So that's what they mean when they say free Palestine. There's a Palestine, but it's under the rule of Israel. No, it is not under the rule of Israel. There was a time that it was because the Palestinians did not have any governing authority or governing body. The PLO was interested in terrorism. They were not interested in governance. The PLO kind of dissolved and rebranded itself as the Palestinian Authority, and they took over control of the West Bank in 2005. Israel withdrew from the West Bank and from Gaza in 2005. And there were elections in West Bank and in Gaza in 2005 and into 2006. The Palestinian Authority won control of the West Bank. They were the moderate wing of the Palestinian government. The body that won control in Gaza in 2006? Hamas. That's right, Hamas. Not just a terrorist organization, but also the governing body of Gaza. Now, it is a fact that Palestine has not been recognized as a state or its own nation because they refuse to come to the table of concession and come to some sort of compromise agreement with Israel so Israel can guarantee its own future. Israel agreed to a two-state solution in the mid-2000s with one major concession. And that was, and there were other ancillary things such as settlements and whatnot to work out. But the big thing was, please disarm yourself of missile capability designed to kill us. And Hamas obviously refused because Hamas has it in their charter that they demand the destruction of the Jews. There's only one nation that has stated it wants a two-state solution. That's Israel. So, no, it is not the case. Palestine is not its own country, but it has been governed by Palestinian people or people who describe themselves as Palestinians for almost 20 years now. But Hamas particularly, because, by the way, we're not hearing a lot about the West Bank right now. Why? Because they are controlled by a group of people that are more moderate in their position about the existence of Israel and the continued existence of the Jewish people. You don't hear them screaming from the river to the sea in the West Bank. So you're not hearing a lot about the West Bank right now. And Israel's not going into the West Bank right now. And Israel's not at war with the West Bank or the Palestinian Authority. They're at war with the people that attacked and killed them. The ruling class of Gaza, a.k.a. the Palestinian people. So I don't know what controlling authority the rest of the world thinks that Israel has over Gaza. They have border security of their own borders, and they strongly control the borders of Gaza, not to protect Gaza, but to occupy Gaza, but to protect themselves. I hope this has been clear. Well, it's not clear to some, and apparently, and I have invited her on the show, and I've not yet to hear back. Maybe I have. Oh, yeah. Somebody just asked if, I guess someone's just joining, wants to know if I've done hard time. Oh, I've done hard time.
He's doing hard time.
That's probably more like you. Matter of fact, when Halloween's over, I ought to give you this outfit and you can wear it every day.
Working with me was hard time.
I've seen hard time, baby. I've seen hard time. Heidi Campbell has been invited on this radio show. She is a senator from the state of Tennessee. Apparently, and this is according to the Tennessee Star and Michael Patrick Leahy, who writes for the Star, one day after Hamas terrorists invaded Israel and killed some 1,400 innocent Israelis, State Senator Heidi Campbell, once again, who's been invited on the show, she's been on the show in the past, issued a statement on X, formerly Twitter, that Israel is a, quote, oppressive regime, and that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is a ruthless dictator. Responding to an individual named Khalid El-Gendi, Khalid said there's no overstating what a massive intelligence failure this is on Israel's part. Gaza is one of the most heavily surveilled geographic spaces in the world, and Israel controls movements in and out of Gaza. That was on October 8th at about 5 o'clock in the morning. Campbell responded, exactly. And don't we question Bibi's role in it, since it comes amid strong protests against his oppressive regime. Ruthless dictators know that wars galvanize. Now, Heidi Campbell has since been seen at both a pro-Israeli rally where she spoke and a pro-Palestinian rally just this last weekend. Heidi Campbell, once again, state senator, saying Bibi's role in this, it comes amid strong protest against his oppressive regime. What is she suggesting? And I've heard this amongst the political left. There are conspiracy theories running around that Benjamin Netanyahu, did this on his own to improve his polling data, to improve his polling numbers? That's that's a little bit of a 9/11 truther take on all of this, isn't it? Of course, there are plenty of those around, too. She then said, ruthless dictators know that wars galvanize. So now Benjamin Netanyahu is a ruthless dictator? This guy that has to deal with recall petitions on the regular, that has to deal with elections. It seems like Benjamin Netanyahu has to be reelected like every 8 months. Doesn't it? It's ridiculous. Why would he go through all of that if he was a ruthless dictator? Just be ruthless and dictate. You don't have to go through those pesky elections. Something that I'm sure that the Democrats would like to see in the United States of America. I just want to call it out, folks. It's not just in New York with AOC. It's not just in parts of the Northeast. It's not just in Dearborn, Michigan, and other areas of the United States of America that have large Muslim populations, for example, or Palestinian populations more particularly. It's right here in the state of Tennessee, where you have state senators in Tennessee they won't out and out say it, but suggesting that Benjamin Netanyahu did this to his own people to improve his poll numbers. That is, let me say it for you, Heidi, disgusting. If that's what you intended, and if you're wrong, you need to come and correct the record. Because that's gross. On Monday of this week, Campbell, according to the Tennessee Star, followed up on her tirade against Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu, calling the newly elected Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, a member of the American Taliban. I know, it's weird. It's a weird flex. Heidi Campbell linking a piece from some online publication said, important read. There's no doubt that Speaker Johnson and the Freedom Caucus are pursuing a theocracy. NAR, another installment of the alphabet soup of the American Taliban. Mike Johnson is a full-blown member. ADF, CNP, FRC, NRA, Jeesh. It's a deep network. Once again, I would love to speak with Heidi Campbell to understand exactly what she means by that. Speaker Johnson wants a theocracy. When has he suggested as such? You know, it's the tired and worn out page of the Democrat playbook that when they're not winning an argument or they're not getting what they want, they revert to calling names, and they'll call you a racist, or they'll call you a chauvinist, or they'll tell you you want to get women back into the kitchen, or, you know, Handmaid's Tale. And we see a lot of that. I saw some of those memes after the election of Speaker Mike Johnson. And none of it ever comes to fruition. And none of it has anything to do with reality, the reality that the world is facing right now. And then, of course, over the weekend, we mentioned this yesterday, Campbell was at a pro-Hamas rally in downtown Nashville, and that's what it was. It was if you are pro-ceasefire, you're pro-Hamas. And I don't know of any other way to say it. And if you don't believe me, how about believe Hillary Rodham Clinton, who ought to know? She knows evil when she sees it. Trust me, she sees it enough. It's 1248 Supertalk 99.7 WTN. If you want to get involved, 615-737-9986. Aaron Gulbranson coming up with the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. We'll talk about the Middle Eastern issues and how they affect us here in the state of Tennessee. That's on the way. Your call's on the way as well. 615-737-9986 on The Murphy Show. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and you. Coming up just after the top of the hour, we'll speak with Aaron Gulbranson. I call him Gulbranson. I'm going to continue to call him Gulbranson. It's my understanding that I'm pronouncing his name incorrectly, but that's okay.
That's incorrect. It's
Bargetzi. It's Bargetzi. 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 Not Bargetzi. Bargatzi.
Good job on SNL, Aaron.
Yeah, way to go, Aaron. But best horror flick? Can you, off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head?
Or should I just set it up for later?
Later.
Best horror flick. I want to know best horror movie. If you're into that sort of thing. I don't get to watch them anymore because the wife won't let me. She refuses. She turns me down. Aaron's already here, so may as well join in on the conversation and find out what's the proper pronunciation of his last name. I've been calling him Gulbranson forever, but now I'm told that it's Gulbranson.
One side of the family.
You don't really care, do you?
I don't, because one side of the family said Gulbranson and the other side of the family said Gulbranson. So who knows?
Well, I don't call you late for dinner.
Yeah,
there's turkey sliders in the break room if you want
they're
some.
all messed up in New York, right? So a bunch of crazy
Is that where
Yankees.
you're from?
Yeah, once upon a time, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize you were a refugee. Congratulations.
That's why I value Tennessee so much, unlike some other people who decided to move here from the north and other states and tell everybody how crappy it is.
See, I came from the bad side of conservatism across the line in Alabama. I say that in love. I'm just kidding, really.
Is there any truth to the idea that Tennesseans consider Alabama to like New York considers New Jersey?
Wait,
yes.
So
is Tennessee to Alabama to a Tennessean?
Oh yeah. I see
you know what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. Alabamians think that Tennessee got all fancy with the Nashville thing.
Okay,
right? And I think there's just a little jealousy. They try to do the same thing with Tennessee that they do with Georgia, and I think there's some legitimacy to the Georgia point, hence the election problems and all of the other things that they're dealing with. I don't see it in Tennessee. And I think anybody that's been to Tennessee doesn't really see it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
That, because there's Georgia, and there's a lot of Georgians that absolutely hate what Georgia's become, which is, Atlanta.
Yep. And a state that's very hard for Republicans to win.
Sadly,
one way or the other.
Yeah, right. I mean, depending on your point of view, there's ways to get rid of that. What have you been following? Israel, big thing.
It's the biggest thing going on right now. Yeah, it's a very sick and sad situation. Then of course it's been bleeding over into our college campuses and our lovely elected officials. Some of them that you were just mentioning before. But yeah.
Well, let's get into it in a second, because after the top of the hour news, I want to ask you your take on one, we've got the college campus deal. I saw where I got this story on the Yale Daily News, which is apparently the oldest, I didn't know this until I read the article, the oldest college daily newspaper in the United States of America. I mean, Yale's obviously from the 1600s or whatever. There was a column that was written by a pro-Israeli columnist, and it was edited by the editor to suggest that it removed, quote, unsubstantiated claims that Hamas beheaded people. Yeah, I mean, you have to laugh, right?
I guess they've changed their MO up, right? That's part of the handbook, isn't it?
We'll get into more of that momentarily with Aaron Gulbranson of the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. Do you still write for the Star? You stopped writing for the Star.
I go hang out with Leahy every now and then for fun, but yeah.
I saw Leahy last week.
I think we're at the same thing, weren't we? Yeah, we were.
Oh, yeah, you were there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I saw you and your wife in line waiting to take a picture with Jack Johnson.
The three little men with microphones were in the same room at the same time.
I didn't see Humble. I didn't see him there. It's 1 minute until 1 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We're back for 2 more hours after this.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. A deepening humanitarian crisis in Gaza with reports of a blast at one of Gaza's largest refugee camps. Israel Defense Forces says it's looking into the cause as it steps up its offensive against Hamas. ABC's Inez de la Cuatera is in Jerusalem.
We know that the Jabalia refugee camp was struck. This is the largest refugee camp in Gaza and one of the most densely populated areas. We're seeing images starting to emerge. They're showing the entire neighborhood flattened, an area that appeared to have other multi-story buildings around it, completely reduced to rubble.
At a Senate hearing today, Secretary of State Antony Blinken estimated 400 Americans trapped in Gaza want to get out. He blamed Hamas for the holdup. Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin briefed lawmakers on the Biden administration's massive funding request, shouted down at times by protesters calling for a ceasefire in Gaza.
Protesters shouted down the Biden administration officials as they began their testimony. Once the disruptors were removed, Secretary of State Antony Blinken urged passage of a $106 billion package, providing more support to Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan, as well as billions more for border security.
Let us come together and demonstrate to one another and to the world that we can rise to this moment.
Stephen Portnoy, ABC News, Washington.
A hearing continues in Colorado in the lawsuit filed by a group of state Republicans to keep former President Trump from appearing on the ballot, claiming he's violated the 14th Amendment and is not eligible. Here's ABC's Aaron Katursky.
A group of current and former Colorado Republicans is trying to convince a judge Donald Trump engaged in an insurrection or rebellion violating the 14th Amendment. As proof, they played Trump's own words from January 6th. They showed photos of rioters outside the Capitol and video of them breaching the building.
Lawyers for Trump say that the allegations are politically motivated. You're listening to ABC News.
Welcome back in. It is the Matt Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You can find us on 99.7 FM on your radio dial, 100,000 watts of blowtorch power there. We're also on virtually any place you can stream on the internet. We're there. Just type in Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You can also find us on Talk TV, where I've taken off my toboggan, a.k.a. my skull cap, because it was very warm on my ears. But my facial tattoos are still right there present and accounted for on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, episode 445, ongoing. Find us and comment on the F&M Bank chat line at your leisure. I mentioned my facial tattoos. Some are wondering if I have tattoos elsewhere on my Yeah, I've got the Talk Life. You see that right there? Yeah, Talk Life. Because that's how I roll. I'm not Thug Life. I'm Talk Life. And that's love and that's hate. So there you go. Speaking of loving someone, Aaron Gilbranson is with us with the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. We love having him on, getting his
don't make me
perspective on
blush.
things. Oh, come on now. Do you? I don't know that I've ever asked you this question. Do you have kids?
No.
How old?
No, I said no. I don't.
Oh, you don't.
No.
Oh, okay. So do you get into Halloween at all?
Occasionally. There's been a couple of years. Let's see.
Man. The adults have taken it over.
To tell on myself, let's see. One year I was the pro wrestler Sting in
That's
2008.
good.
And so I spent the night phone banking at for John McCain against Barack Obama that particular Halloween. Now, I mean, the problem with me is when I'm not dressed up in the suit and all that stuff, I do like my pro wrestling T-shirts, so I can very easily put a hat on and then I'll say, "Oh, this is my costume." But no, I don't go all out. My wife will wear. She's got a skeleton onesie that she's able to wear to the pharmacy at work, so she has a good time with that. And yeah, so she'll do that. But it's more like the goodies and the brownies and all the stuff. Now, I know you did a whole thing about candy corn a few weeks ago that I was listening to intently.
Are you a candy corn aficionado?
No, but I do love the Lewis Black bit on it.
Well, here's the deal. Well, here's the thing. That is a good bit. So I try to, on my show, not to make a matter of taste a matter of fact.
Right.
Because I bristle when people do that. Mm-hmm. Right? When people come on and say, well, hot dogs are awful. And you say, well, I like hot dogs. No, they're horrible. Well, I like hot dogs. No, they're awful.
That sounds like how certain people do politics and in general.
Well, you're right about that. Yeah, he's a rhino. Well, he's a rhino because he disagreed with you on one thing?
Or if he likes hot dogs, apparently.
Well, yeah, sure. And so, I mean, I don't begrudge you if you don't care for candy corn, so be it. I like candy corn. I'm a candy corn fan.
No, I do agree with Lewis Black, though. I do think that they made every last bit of candy corn in existence in circulation in the year 1910. And then at the end of the Halloween festivities, it gets all shoveled back and sent back to the factory and repackaged.
Right, they clean it a little bit, put it back in bags, seal it back up, put it on the shelves for next year. Sure, because you can't possibly, Lewis Black is not a fan of candy corn.
No.
And you can't possibly expect that anyone would actually eat that.
Yep.
Do you get trick-or-treaters?
It depends on where we've been living at the time, but yes, we've occasionally done that, and I'll leave candy around. My mother was incredibly strict as a kid, and I always felt bad for the children who came to the door, and Mom would be like, no, Halloween is evil, no treats for you, but here's a tract for the,
that's
which... I do believe in spreading the word of God as much as you possibly can, but I don't think annoying a child who's expecting a candy is the greatest way to get them closer to Jesus.
I got toothpaste one year. That was the best I came to, or closest I came. Like somebody gave you one of those little things, like you expect candy, and they threw a little thing of toothpaste in here.
Did you get like a piece of paper and a pencil too, and they turned it into a back to school holiday?
I mean, come on, it's just come on. What are you doing? I just don't give out anything.
You could put an amusing sign on the door,
Kids used to get. I'm told that there was a time where people would like hand out money, like quarters. I know. It really is a socialist holiday. I'm getting into this more in the 2:00 hour. We'll get into more serious matters, but I mean, it really is a little socialist holiday.
Just a tad bit.
People come to my door. Hey, I look cute. Hey, I look cute. Give me free stuff.
Where's the government involvement?
Hey, I look cute. Give me free stuff. We demand it. Otherwise, we cast you as a curmudgeon and an evil human being.
I don't see the government involvement.
The societal government.
It's a societal thing. Society acts as the government in this. That society insists that you participate in this socialist system. Otherwise, you're an evil person.
You want a bulwark against your curmudgeonness, and you're not getting one.
Well, here's my favorite Halloween memory while we're doing this. I forget how old I was. I was probably like 8. My brother was like 10. And my grandfather, we go out trick-or-treating. I was Fonzie that year. That was when I had the Fonzie mask. It was cool. And I think my brother was like a farmer or something. Anyway, my grandfather gave him a mag light, one of those big, heavy mag lights, to carry around with us as we were trick-or-treating. And for some reason, I don't know why we went to this house, but there was one house with this dark porch. And they had like a spooky orange light on. There was some indication that we were supposed to go on the porch. Otherwise, we wouldn't have it. It's like my brother, myself, and probably 3 or 4 other kids. And there was this dude in the corner that was there to scare us. And we didn't see him, of course. And we go up to the door, and we like knock on the door, and everybody says trick or treat. And when we say trick or treat, the guy in the corner stands up and goes, "Ah!" And my brother racked that dude in the head with a mag light. And we all ran. And all I remember is that, this is a grown man.
He was genuinely afraid, right?
Oh, yeah, no, we popped him in the head. It's a monster. And so we run, and the guy's like, "Get back here, get back." He's mad, but he's sounding like a monster, and so we just ran.
Okay, good. It's good that he made noise, though, because I was going to say, is this the story about how we are not sure whether or not he murdered someone?
Well, that's right. That is the story as to how I ended up in this orange jumpsuit.
He could have died from a hematoma later.
That's true. Delayed reaction.
Well, we can all hope, because he's sitting around trying to scare little kids, and that's wrong. Awful. Speaking of awful, let's talk about Heidi Campbell.
Speaking of things that scare little kids.
I had Sapicki on with McCalman on yesterday. And, what did I do this? I haven't touched it.
I didn't say you did.
Did you do it?
No.
Okay. Pardon me on the Super Talk TV. We're getting the shots right. I think it matters that we identify where our local and state officials are on these issues, because, these world affairs will affect us, maybe not directly, indirectly. And so I had these 2 Republicans on to talk about the impact of the Israeli-Hamas conflict on the state of Tennessee. And we've seen some others who aren't coming on the show that have some different opinions on it. Right. Justin Jones is one, and Heidi Campbell is another. Tell me why it matters.
Well, it matters because you need to know the values that your representatives have, right? Is there something that a state rep or a state senator can do to affect the foreign policy of the United States? No, but you do need to understand whether or not they're condoning the murdering of children, the murdering and raping of women and beheading and all that sort of thing. So that's why it matters. Now, Heidi is one of those that appeared out of both sides of her mouth and spoke out of both sides of her mouth. And what I mean by that is, at the pro-Israel event at the Capitol on Friday, I was there. Tennessee Faith and Freedom supported the event. We helped promote it. And her speech, in my view, was not really pro-Israel so much as it was making oblique references to how much she hates Nazis. And, of course, she brought up the city of Franklin. Now, what did she mean by that? To bring up the election, of course, she was talking about Gabrielle Hansen and her association with the 5 Nazis in the whole bloody state of Tennessee that all managed to hang out with her. And so she used that to make a political point against people that would never vote for her. Now, on that particular front, she was not wrong. But then, and that's pretty much the substance of her speech, but then a couple days later on Sunday, she appears, and the Tennessee Star reported that she appeared at a anti-Israel rally. And if you hear the things that they chant at these things, from the river to the sea, which means exterminate all Jewish and Israeli life in the land of Israel, number of other things that were chanted, but, tantamount to death to Israel. So, Campbell obviously was trying to be a little politician on Friday, and then came out on Sunday and was the worst of politicians, in my view.
So she made this vague reference to Nazism and kind of tied Franklin into it.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then kudos to Franklin.
Right.
Because last election cycle, the one candidate that had any association or refused to denounce association with neo-Nazis was destroyed by the polls.
Right. Yep.
And Franklin, despite what some have suggested over the past several months, I don't believe that Franklin's a liberal place.
No, it's not.
I mean, I understand that as the city grows, you're going to have more diversity of viewpoint, and you're probably going to grow a little less conservative as the population grows.
Right.
But at the same time, it is not. I mean, there are some during that race that wanted to suggest that Franklin had become Nashville and it was on the precipice of becoming a cesspool or whatever. And these candidates got destroyed because the people of Franklin know that their city's doing pretty well.
You had a lot of people, and not to belabor that race but so much, but you had people running in that race, not just the failed candidate Gabrielle Hansen, that were lying about the city of Franklin, that was saying that Franklin was Nashville, like you just referenced. And then on the other hand, you had Phil Williams, who very accurately reported the facts about Hansen's history, but used those facts to falsely paint Gabrielle Hansen and her cohorts as if they were representative of A, Franklin, B, conservatives, and Trump supporters in general. Where my differing opinion on that is I don't believe Gabrielle Hansen, Jeff Feldman, any of them remotely resemble conservatism, remotely resemble anything other than neo-populism, which is basically a way of demagoguing and trying to fool conservatives and Trump supporters and Republicans to make you think they're one of them, but they're not. And so, Faith and Freedom Coalition, myself, all of my friends condemned Hansen and all of those associations from day one, especially when we found out about the human trafficking connection. But what Campbell refuses to do is, so I will call out anti-Semitism wherever it comes from.
Sure.
And so neither Campbell, Justin Jones, Gloria Johnson, any of them, when they're, they refuse to chastise, and some of them, and like Campbell did, actively participate in these anti-Semitic events. And this is what we're seeing all around the country, not just here, but these specific, I've been calling Jones, and I think Campbell just made her audition for this, but Jones, Pearson, Johnson, now Afton Ben, and now Heidi Campbell is the Tennessee Hamas Caucus. I think the days of the Tennessee Three are over. It's
Tennessee Hamas Caucus. Well, I mean, if you're calling for, as Jones has explicitly called for, as was called for at this pro-Palestinian / Hamas rally, if you're calling for a ceasefire, you're either ignorant, and the results are the same. You're pro-Hamas.
Right.
Pro-ceasefire is pro-Hamas because it's what Hamas does. And I don't know if you were listening on the way in, even someone like Hillary Clinton understands this.
Right.
It's fascinating that some of the older school Democrats, and I think Joe Biden went kind of back into the recesses of his mind and recalled years ago what the Democrat position was on these issues, because there was a time 30 or 40 years ago that the Democrats were right alongside Republicans on the issue of being pro-Israeli and pro the state of Israel. And now these younger socialists have just thrown that to the wayside.
20 and 30 years ago, being pro-Israel and being pro-Jew, Jewish community here in the United States was not a left-right issue. 20, 30 years ago, being anti-human trafficking was not a left-right issue, and then on and on and on. This rise of socialism and Marxism in this country has been very, very disturbing, and I think a giant part of it is, if not the entire reason, is the amount of indoctrination that the kids get in schools and at the collegiate level. I did see something the other day, and I can't give you the exact number, but I did. There was a disturbing poll that was released in about 1939 amongst college students at Ivy League universities, which kind of mirrors what we are seeing in that Harvard-Harris poll, where it showed them that the plurality of college students in the United States support Hamas and think they're justified. Well, in 1939, the plurality of college students polled supported Hitler.
Didn't Time magazine? I think Hitler was Band of the Year at one point.
He was Time magazine, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's and it's frightening where we've come, and it's frightening the level of ignorance. I saw a video last night on the campus. It wasn't Boston College, but it was somewhere in Massachusetts, where, and for the life of me, and this led to a conversation with my wife and I about this. I don't understand the mentality of a human being that would walk around the United States of America and pull down flyers that show photographs of kidnapped children, that were kidnapped by Hamas and taken by Hamas into Gaza and hidden in Gaza as hostages.
Right.
Children, grown people, grandmas, the whole 9 yards. And we still have hundreds unaccounted for that are believed to be hostages. And so I don't understand the mentality of someone that would take it upon themselves to walk to a wall. You know how on college campuses they have these wall of flyers and guitar lessons and whatever, and pull one down. And a guy caught a student pulling one down and said, "Why did you pull that down?" I put it up there. "Oh, I'm trying to look at it more closely." She lied.
Yeah.
And then eventually it led to him confronting her. "Why are you doing that?" And she refused to answer him. She said, well, the only thing she said was his propaganda. And he said, "No, it's not propaganda." He tried to engage her, and she just walked away from him. And I've been asking a question that I think is similar in its nature. When you're walking down the street in Nashville, Tennessee, screaming "Free Palestine," what do you mean? I don't understand what that means.
Well, I mean, you just got to listen to what they say, and it means the extermination of the Jewish race from the area of Israel. I mean, they use the same language. They talk about colonization. I mean, it's repetition. The ironic thing is the Marxist left and all these people chanting, the anti-Jewish stuff, they use Goebbels' playbook, which is repeat the same thing over and over again, and sooner or later people are fooled. And the younger audience, that's what they're fooled with. They have no sense of history. They don't know that, for example, the term Palestine was never used to describe the area of Israel until a Roman emperor decided after the second insurrection to take away the Jewish national identity and call it Syrian Palestine. And then they didn't use it in the modern age until the 1960s when, and mind you, they also don't know that Israel was attacked on its very founding. They don't know that Israel gives warning in advance of its retaliatory attacks. It's never been an offensive attack. They don't know that after, 1948, 1967, they had a big tract of land called the Sinai Peninsula. Well, they voluntarily gave it back to Egypt in 1979. They don't know that Israel has offered statehood to the so-called Palestinian people. And again, I say so-called because of the history of the term. But the so-called Palestinian people in 2008, I want to say, and 2000, and it's been rejected every time. The terms of a two-state solution to the Arab world and to the so-called Palestinian people is not acceptable. They want Israel eradicated from the river to the sea. And nobody, if you were to actually understand all of that I said, would ever dare say that the Israelis don't have a right to defend themselves. And now, but there are people that would just say, "Oh, that's all a bunch of hogwash." But it's history. It's all true. It's there to be found.
Well, and more broadly, I love these groups of people that determine who the colonizers are and who the colonizers aren't based on their pen in the arc of history, right?
Yeah.
Right? So they determine at what point the proper people were on that stake of land.
Right.
And anyone coming afterwards is improper, and they just ignore the history of the creation of Israel. And as you said, the war that ultimately the state of Israel was about to be created, and there was a civil war that broke out on that region of property, which led to what we have today. Quick timeout. Aaron Gilbranson is with us. It's 1:23 on Super Talk 99.7. If you'd like to get involved in the conversation, Super Text line is up, 615-737-9986. Telephone line's up, 615-737-9986. It's The Murphy Show. You don't want to call USS. I know you don't. You don't want to call USS because that means you have identified an issue at your home that needs some further investigations. And I get it. I understand why you don't want to do that, because you don't want to believe it's true. But, friends, it's not going to get better, only worse. And United Structural Systems, well, with that call, you can begin the process of repairing that foundation, making sure that that waterproofing is up to snuff and where it should be, or leveling that concrete with a poly-level lift system. The foundation settles in the state of Tennessee because of the topography, because of moisture and drought conditions. It gets hot and it gets cold, and that soil expands and contracts, and it swells during the wetter months and shrinks during the drier prior months, and all of that fluctuation leads to foundation issues. And if your home has them, they're not going to go away. Let's make them go away with USS, United Structural Systems. They are a trusted source for structural repair since 1994. Almost 30 years they've been doing it the right way. They don't try to upsell you on anything, and they have more than 25. I'm a testimonial, but they have more than 25,000 testimonials to that regard because they have that many satisfied customers over that length of time. Call them today. USS, they guarantee their best, serving southern Kentucky, all throughout Middle Tennessee and northern Alabama since 1994. 615-488-7855, 488-7855 for USS, USSTN.com. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I've now convinced Gulbranson to occasionally sub in for me when I'm away. I've been begging him to do that for like the year and a half that I've known him, and he's now said that he would consider it. Is that it?
Yeah.
That's an official statement?
Sure.
That you'll consider it?
I am happy to be one of the little men with microphone caucus, so we can
Watch out. Watch out. You get a podcast about you.
Oh, yeah.
They'll
put on your eyeliner. And
any podcast that starts off promoting that 9/11 was an inside job and that George W. Bush had prior knowledge of the attacks on the American people on September 11th, 2001, and then goes on to talk about how much they don't like me, I'm going to wear that as a badge of honor.
Mm.
And I think you would too.
Listen, I'm happy to be on your side against Osama bin Humble. So.
Not to put
High priest of the Westboro Baptist Church.
What does it say? What does it say about our institutions of higher learning that we have the amount? I mean, I'm trying to give some level of benefit of the doubt to these skulls of mush, because when I was in college in the early 1990s, I remember when I'm 19, 20. I desperately wanted to be a part of something, and I was hopelessly idealistic and naive, but I grew out of it, and you know what I mean? So I want to believe that these skulls of mush will grow out of it, and it's just a part of life. But the level of ignorance that is involved in for example, being a part of the gay or transgender community and supporting a group of people that would kill you if they had the opportunity is amazing.
Well, and mind you, of course, anybody who supported the anti-child mutilation ban like we did and the keeping the kids out of drag shows was called by people like Heidi Campbell hateful Christians who hated gays and blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, these people, we're supporting, obviously, the good guys in the Israeli conflict, but they're supporting, and the Heidi Campbells of the world and the Justin Joneses of the world are supporting the very people that would actually kill and actually do kill gay and trans and all that other side of that community. It's an ironic. Well, what it shows you is the politicians themselves in this case are utterly full of it. Now, the kids, I won't give a pass per se. I can understand it better because they're ignorant. They've been indoctrinated for decades, right?
Well, and forget about, for the gay community, the transgender community, set that aside for a minute. Don't forget about it, but set it aside for a minute. Let's just talk about females.
Mm-hmm.
Any female that supports Hamas, you understand that Hamas believes in a system of government and religion that any man is allowed to subjugate you as a woman based on your being female. Any man.
Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and are waging their own war on women, and that's what they call their normal society.
Right.
We're not arguing over the right to life over there. They're arguing over the right to essentially exist because women are treated like property over there.
Right. I mean, if you think you don't have the right to choose in the United States of America, you don't have the right to choose what you wear.
Right.
In Gaza. I mean, that is chosen for you by men.
Yep.
131 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We'll be back in a moment. Tennessee Men's Clinic wants to talk to you fellas. Now, if you're a lady and you've noticed that your guy is lower in energy level than you've been accustomed to, or maybe he's been moping around the house, perhaps tired or grumpy, it could be low T. It could be something completely different, but it could be this. And if that's the case, there is such a simple solution to find out if it is, and that is Tennessee Men's Clinic. Allow them to be a part of your life. Now, I understand when you hear the commercials, they talk a lot about bedroom activity because that's an important aspect of married life, especially when you start losing that component of your married life. Well, whether that's the case or not, I encourage you to get to Tennessee Men's Clinic. Get checked out, men. You need to know certain numbers in your life. You need to know your blood pressure. You need to know your cholesterol. You need to know that T level. Let's get it known, and let's find out if there's something that you need to do about it. Tennessee Men's Clinic is there for you. 2 locations to serve you. One's in Midtown Nashville, been there for decades. The other opened just this past spring, and that's in Franklin, in Cool Springs. Go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for directions to either locations. Better yet, go ahead and make the appointment right now at Tennessee Men's Clinic. 615-208-9090. 208-9090. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Tennessee Men's Clinic. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you, along with Aaron Goldbranson of the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. Before I lose it, as we could talk about the Israel-Hamas war for the next hour and a half, but I don't want to get away from what's happening right here in the state of Tennessee. I know that it seems like the off-season for most of us with regard to the General Assembly. However, believe it or not, folks, it's November tomorrow, and that means that a lot of lawmakers are figuring out what bills they want to go ahead and pre-file and getting ready for the January General Assembly. I would imagine that the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition, building on some of the successes of the special session, have some ideas about what we need to do to improve the laws in the state of Tennessee. Talk to me about it.
Well, as we've been working on, there is no off season if you're committed to what you're doing, right? So I maintain constant contact with members of the General Assembly and other groups around the state. And so, of course, we're working on, I had 2 meetings this week. Some of them may be combined, but we're basically looking at roughly 10 bits of legislation that will gut the human trafficking industry in the state of Tennessee. There's other things that you also work with. I mean, you advocate for various policy positions, that the governor can or various agencies can do. But that's been the biggest specific thing. This is kind of a little geeky thing, but just so people kind of understand how the process works. As you said, legislators are right now thinking about what they're going to file, right? What bills they're seeking comment from their constituents. They usually start doing it around, in a rough way around September. Bills typically start getting filed in December. And then you have, January 8th or 9th or so, they go into session. You really start seeing consideration of legislation about 2 weeks after that. So this is your coalition building phase, your formation phase. If you know what you're really doing and you go at it in a smart way, before the bill's filed, you kind of know where it's going to go because you've done your pre-work, right? This is not a process where you want to go, hey, I got a really good idea on December 31st. And
describe, and not just for, there are good lobbying organizations and there are not so good lobbying organizations. Really depends on, what side of the ideological spectrum you're on. I believe that Tennessee Faith and Freedom in its, just over a year existence, has been a great positive force in this state. And I say that to you, and I say that to Aaron number 2, and I say that to anyone else listening, that I believe in what you guys do.
Thank you.
And you know that. Yeah. And I think a lot of lawmakers do as well. What is life like? What do you do? I guess for those that don't understand the process, and I think I got it. I'm not there with you every step of the way, but it's a matter of building relationships with lawmakers and pressing upon them the importance of aspects of the legislation, particularly in child and human trafficking that you guys talk about often.
Yeah. In terms of human trafficking, it's really actually the biggest thing was just raising awareness, right? Because it's something when they're explained to it, all the legislators go for it. On other topics, I've got to tell you, sometimes, and this happens with everybody, sometimes somebody gets a really good idea that they think that something should be law. And as it turns out, maybe it already is a law. It's just there needs to be a better enforcement mechanism. It's a collaborative process. The biggest thing that I don't do, and I've never done this, is dictate to the General Assembly or any other leader, because they may have a way to make my idea better. I may have a way to make their idea better. And also, when it comes to matters of what is and isn't law, the average person doesn't have the time nor the resources, but even the people that lobby don't necessarily get the facts of the law and the state code properly right. So you have to walk into a meeting with these guys during your relationship and have an open mind. I never sit there and go, I have 10 things. I wrote this down on a piece of paper. I typed it up all fancy, and this is exactly how this is going to happen. It's a collaboration. And
have we mentioned some of the entities and people in the state of Tennessee that engage in purity politics, and it's detestable to me.
Yeah.
Because I think you're in the business of dividing people and creating enemies, as opposed to creating coalitions of friends to achieve. My grandfather always said it's better to get 50% of something than 100% of nothing.
Right.
And and I understand that they are a dividing force. Have we more broadly, maybe not in Tennessee, but in America, lost the art of the idea? Compromise is not necessarily losing.
Never let the perfect be the enemy of the good. My whole thing, when I had a conversation, I had a conversation today with somebody, and it was, one of the things that we're looking at is increased penalties for traffickers. And I'll just use this as a specific topic. If I am sitting here and telling you that you're a rhino unless you're giving the exact number of years that I want, and I'm going to dictate to you exactly what law you're going to pass, otherwise you're a rhino, well, that's dumb on me, because this is a process. I can move the ball down the field. Maybe you get half of what you're looking for. Ronald Reagan was one of the greatest coalition builders we've ever had in this country, and he had an 80-20 rule. And I think if we applied the 80-20 rule today, we wouldn't have the razor-thin margin in the U.S. House of Representatives that we currently have, and we wouldn't be staring at the fiscal cliff that we're about to fall off of.
Well, and there's certain, and I'm not a part of Club Republican. I'm not a part of any club that would have me as a member, so I don't pretend to be. That's why I get so amused when the purity politicians or the purity pundits refer to me as a rhino, because I've never claimed to be a Republican, so I don't know how I can be a Republican in name only if I don't claim it. That said, it occurs to me, you mentioned Reagan. Reagan was in the business of finding ways to bring people into the tent and to demonstrate to them that maybe if they and that's not to say to compromise certain principles. I understand that there are certain principles that are non-compromisable. That's not what we're discussing. But we are talking about drawing people in with sunshine and a smile, as opposed to what I see a lot of people doing nowadays, and that is they're in the business of booting as many people out as they possibly can.
Yeah, and that's why I came up with the term neo-populist. There's a subsect of that group that wants to, I don't think they're for smaller government. I think that they're for very large government. They just want to be the ones wielding the power of large government. They want to dictate to the politicians and the people that the politicians represent. And that's a very dangerous thing. But if you are willing to work with us to further the ball on, and especially an issue like child and human trafficking, why in the world would we call you any number of terrible names and then expect you to help us?
Well, it's the reason, and let me circle back. And this is, your presence here today is not for the host of this show to pat you on the back and congratulate you, but you and the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition were against the special session. You stated it. You publicly spoke, if you will, to Governor Lee and stated your reasons publicly why you thought it was a bad idea. Governor Lee said it's happening. We're going to see that it happens. And instead of just running around the state talking about what an awful person Lee was, you figured out, okay, what ways can we advance an agenda that matters to Tennesseans, that advances our cause and a cause that's going to be good for everyone, and you accomplish that.
Right.
That's the way that you turn lemons into lemonade.
Right, and 100%. And that's how you should do it. If you listen, it would be really fun to pull all the levers well, it'd be a headache. But if you could dictate everything that could happen in the history of the world, you probably wouldn't like the world you created, any individual person. But when you're bashing your head against the wall, and at the same time you're grabbing other people's heads and bashing them against the wall because you're not doing every single thing you want, you can't get anything accomplished. And that's right. Once we realized that there was nothing we could do, we couldn't move the rock, it was going to happen, special session was going to happen. How do we then work as hard as we possibly can to make something good happen? And we have a very good foundation of anti-trafficking legislation that passed that is going to be all the more important. It's a building block for what we're going to do in January. And we have very good partners in the General Assembly. Governor Lee has been a great working partner on the issue of child and human trafficking. And we've made clear we may disagree in the future. But we'll tell you that to your face. We'll tell you honestly, and we'll tell you why. We're not going to lie about your voting record like other people do. We're not going to lie about your voting record or proposals to raise money. We don't do that.
I think Tennessee is getting ready to, at least I'm hopeful, and we are blessed to live in a state where we have this ability. But I think it should be a bell cow for the way the rest of the country should react to government money. And I'm talking about the Department of Education spending, federal Department of Education spending. Because I'm hearing from the General Assembly that we're almost to a point where we can turn that money down.
Yeah.
Which gives the state of Tennessee a beautiful autonomy to make their own decisions about the direction of education in this state. And it also sends a message, and I think it's a message that needs to be sent to Washington, D.C., that you are spending far too much money.
Right.
And far too long, states have gobbled that money up that's borrowed against our future, our grandkids and our great-grandkids. And it's time that we recognize the importance of turning that money down. And I applaud the leadership of this state for their courage in attempting to do this, something that has gotten a lot of frustration and just backlash from the political left.
Well, and it's a recognition of who the true enemy is, right? I can see, I mean, I would argue 100%, but I'm sure there could be something I could miss. Every bad thing we have going on in this country has some sort of political or cultural Marxism component to it, right? And of course, a lot of that indoctrination of the youth comes through the Department of Education, right? That's a very good thing, but it's very, very important. I would say, don't trust a bloody word. Anybody who tells you that Marxism is not a threat to this country, those people don't know what they're talking about. They're actually enabling it by saying those kinds of things. And you have to do everything to make a better life for your kids. And in politics, I would say follow the Reagan rule as much as you possibly can. Don't break your unbreakable lines, and also fight Marxism. And probably should reverse some of those orders, but.
Well, and just to use another example out of the headlines from yesterday, the states that are attempting to deny Donald Trump access to the ballot, those states are engaging in Marxism. They're engaging in a system of government that is not the American system of government.
Right.
To deny an individual honest ballot access after being elected by groups, Republicans in this case, to be their nominee on the ballot. It is wrong on its face, and it's Marxist on its face.
And of course, as you can see, the left, the Marxist left, and those neo-populists that act like them engage in the very same tactics that they accuse their opponents of doing. Stacey Abrams, repeatedly said the election was stolen, the election was stolen, the election was stolen. I think she said she was governor for a while, right? Something like that. But and then as soon as President Trump or his supporters say those things, oh my gosh, it's wrong. It's
I could play you. I have it up on my Twitter feed. I could play you. I think it's 24 minutes of Democrats election denying Democrats. But this was about the 2016 election, right? But that's different.
And they also said that in 2000. I think some of them said in 2004. Oh, wait, it's every time somebody with an R next to their name wins a national election.
Well, that's different. That's free speech, after all.
Right.
That's a different matter altogether. Trump's the nominee, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Pence left.
Right.
Because for whatever he was, he's the former vice president of the United States, believe it or not.
He was running for president?
Yeah, I know. I was as shocked as anybody.
By the way, you want to know a little fun tidbit?
Sure.
Local and national connection. Apparently, Gabrielle Hansen has paid about $52,000 to Jeff Rowe Axiom Strategies. And Jeff Rowe happens to be the consultant for Never Back Down, which is Ron DeSantis' super PAC. So
what?
The consultants take on a variety of different clients, and I don't want that to be taken as an attack on DeSantis whatsoever. But it's kind of funny that what a weird little small world, shall we say?
Should we, if you are conservative, libertarian, if you are anti-Marxist in any fashion, should we keep DeSantis in our back pocket though? I don't think DeSantis is a bad guy. He's a little more of a politician than I had hoped he would be.
I think, and this is no disrespect to anybody else, but I think Ron DeSantis' term as governor has been at least top 5 in the history of the United States. I mean, he's a great governor. I
don't want to turn him into the enemy because he's not Trump.
He's not. And yeah, let's be clear on that. If you're one of those people listening right now that goes in the Twitter wars and you're calling... If you're a Trump supporter and you're calling DeSantis supporters rhinos, and if you're a DeSantis supporter calling Trump supporters rhinos, stop it.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
This is going to work itself out, and we don't have to pretend that Ron DeSantis is soiled goods because he's going to get his brains beaten in by Donald Trump.
No, he was taken advantage of by bad consultants, and he turned out not to be the most charismatic guy under the sun on the national stage.
We had hoped that he would be. He hasn't been. He's kind of coming off as a little nerdy. I just think the raw honesty of Trump, whatever you think about him, pushes these other politicians into being that rawly honest with the American people. Otherwise, by comparison, they look political.
Right.
Mike Pence recognized over the weekend that it wasn't his time. He's the most prominent name, not the biggest candidate, but the most prominent name to do that thus far. Who's next? I mean, how quickly are they next, I guess? I mean, believe it or not, and for those of you who think that Wise Murphy asking Gulbranson about the presidential election, it's November, people.
Yep.
There will be voting in 3 months.
Yep. Well, you probably see... Is Tim Scott even still in right now?
He is.
No, he'll be out at some point. I think your final four are Trump, DeSantis, Haley, and Ramaswamy. Vivek, who I spoke, I mean, we did an event, calling for the release of the manifesto, and I appreciated his interest in that very, very much. He's been a little bit all over the place on the Israel issue. I think he surged a bit, but it's kind of going back down. Usually what happens is you have your front runner, Trump. You use archetypes. But you have your front runner, Trump, who wins. Then there's the presumptive second guy, but they usually wind up dropping out before the very last holdout. So I would say DeSantis probably drops out after after Iowa.
Yeah, some of the also-rans will stick in there.
And then you'll have, Vivek maybe because he can self-fund to the very end, or Nikki Haley's probably the last one to drop out, actually.
Let me throw a bomb right in here, right as I have to say goodbye to you. You ready for the bomb?
Sure.
Vivek is a non-starter for me now. You know why?
Why?
His Alex Jones interview.
Seriously. He did an interview with Alex Jones
on his podcast. Anyone that would give that scumbag a platform, you're dead to me. That's just me. That's just me.
For the life of me, cannot figure out why he did that.
I know, and I know that a bunch of whatever. I'm happy to fight you on Alex Jones. Happy to fight.
Now,
you.
Alex Jones is one of those
Not
guys.
you, but you know. No.
Well, I mean, we're not going to fight over Alex Jones. I share your opinion. One of the worst things was years ago when I was broadcasting. I found out the guy who was on at midnight was Alex Jones. I almost resigned the station over it.
I got to go, otherwise they're going to make me resign. I'm going to end up in this. I hear you. Aaron, thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron Gulbranson, Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. Enjoy them. Follow them. It's 53 after the hour. Back in a moment. Man, time flies when you're having fun. And it flies on this show, too. It's almost 2 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WT, and we've got another hour to go, and that hour starts right after Mac Maury's news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.201, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 48 degrees on Music Row, and a freeze warning will go back into effect tonight in Middle Tennessee at 10 p.m. until tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Got a complete weather forecast just a few minutes away. Lawmakers on the Senate Appropriations Committee discussed how Congress could come to the aid of both Israel and Ukraine as war continues to plague both regions. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin made the case for Congress to approve President Biden's $100 billion proposal to help both nations with their respective conflicts. But some Republicans on Capitol Hill have signaled they're interested in creating separate bills on those aid packages. Rachel Blade says the new House Speaker Mike Johnson is going one step further, refusing to bring a Ukraine funding package to the floor for a vote, while baking in certain conditions for Israeli aid.
This is something that typically, when it's put on the floor, gets between 300 and 400 House members in terms of backing money for Israel. But Johnson, who is a fiscal conservative, says he wants that money to actually be offset, which is actually a rarity. And because of that, he's picking Democratic priorities to cut to fund Israel. Even Jewish Democrats are telling me that that's dead on arrival in the Senate.
And in some other news, a new independent report finds an administrative failures led to inadequate security policies at Oxford High School ahead of the deadly 2021 Michigan mass shooting that left 4 students dead and injured 7, including a teacher. Dave Packer.
The 572-page report details a failure by the Oxford School District to follow threat assessment policy and that neither the administration nor the superintendent nor the board provided a safe environment for students. The independent investigation commissioned after 2 resigned school board members claimed the district failed to implement its threat assessment playbook that they say could have prevented the massacre. Oxford student Ethan Crumbly pleaded guilty to all 24 charges brought against him in the massacre, including terrorism and murder.
And right now in Nashville, Metro Police ask that you keep an eye out for a black SUV similar to a Jeep Compass. It was seen speeding towards I-24 from the scene of a shooting at the MAPCO on Harding Place. It happened around 9:30 this morning. A man suffered what is described as critical injuries. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Pardon me while I adjust my toboggan, a.k.a. my skull cap. Got to get that on right so I can get the headphones on. It's 2:06. Good afternoon. Happy Halloween. Hope everyone's doing well. Nice-looking day. Cold outside. Should be. It is, after all, the final day of October. November coming up. And then we're into the holiday season. I mean, I guess we're already here.
You might want to give an explanation again of what they're seeing on Super Talk TV, because
There's some
looking
confusion.
at you, it looks like you're in pajamas.
Does it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Weber just said he kind of looks like he's in jail. I was like, no, that's the point.
So let me help Weber out. Is
Okay,
he
there we go.
back there?
Yeah,
Is he line watching?
Weber's looking at you. There it is. Nice. Alabama Department of Corrections. Nice.
Got the here, Weber. Let me show you.
He's still showing you Weber. Weber's still looking. Hard to see in that light, but that is an eye drop and then a cross.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've rubbed off.
Mm-hmm.
Talk life across the knuckles.
That's right. And my britches aren't sagging in the joint either. Is that true? Is that where that came from? I've always read that.
What
I've never really done my own research onto it. The word is, you know how the young kids these days, Maury, you would know a little about this.
Hopefully.
They like to sag the britches, Maury.
Oh, gotcha.
Have you seen that?
I have seen that.
I don't, and I feel like an old man every time I feel this way, but I'm going to maintain. It makes zero sense to me. I get letting them, hang down. I get that.
In middle school, I used to love to sag.
But when you get to the point where they're going to fall down unless you're physically holding them, like if you're below the hip level, I don't understand that. And it is my understanding that the nature of sagging came from prison.
It's often claimed that the style originated from the U.S. prison system, where belts are sometimes prohibited owing to fear.
I'm listening.
That they can be used as makeshift weapons, and there can be a lack of appropriately sized clothing.
Or I also heard that it was an indicator of availability.
Oh,
I wouldn't know nothing about that.
I don't currently have.
I'd keep mine hiked up.
I know, like up to my nips.
No room for business.
It's no business. There's no business here. I'm doing my time.
I told Belle I'd be screwed, literally and figuratively. So
easy.
Zing.
Come on, what do you think this is? The Drive with Brian Wilson? We don't put up with that trash around here. This is a family show.
How was that?
209. I am compelled. It is Halloween. I'm the only. By the way, I'm officially the only dude in the office that dressed up. The only one. But that's
we had
okay.
Some guys at the Zone dress up. I think.
Did we?
I think we did. He's like hopeful.
Mandis wore his usual gray. I saw that. I was a little hopeful that Hand, given that he has 4 youngsters that are going trick-or-treating, I was thinking maybe Chris Hand is dressing up. No, nothing. I don't know. Brian Wilson? Maybe. We'll find out. We'll find out from beautiful Watertown coming up in about an hour or so.
If Dan had dressed up, my first question would have been, there's something emotionally wrong happening.
For Mandis to do so? I mean, but he's taking the little guy out to trick-or-treat tonight, right?
I would assume so. Him or Amy won.
So when here's my thing, and one of the reasons that I say that there's a lot of socialism involved in the Halloween holiday, I've never had kids. So, and Hand mentioned this morning during the crossover with Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News, that if you have Halloween-age kids, you're on the other side of Halloween. You're not giving the candy, you're getting the candy.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Well,
nice.
I've never been on that side of it.
You're constantly giving.
Sucks to be you.
Well, it sucks to be you, too, except you hide out in your room with your cats.
Right. I go buy the candy and I keep it.
Well, I mean, honestly, it sucks to be you in a lot worse ways.
Oh, that's just...
I'm kidding. That's a joke.
Guys.
These are the
Your
jokes.
opinion means very little to me.
These are jokes. My favorite modern Halloween costume, I don't know why, but it never fails to make me giggle, is the T-Rex. The little the blow.
Oh, it's because of the way when you move in that thing, just
And
the
the
way the
little-
legs go.
and the
It's
little arms.
it's hilarious.
And you're thinking, how was this creature the terror of the earth? They don't have arms. They do have a big mouth, but they're little bitty, because you feel like they want.
If you're happy and you know it. Oh, crap.
Oh, that's why they're so angry. That's why they eat people or whatever. They got those little pinchers on their arms. They can't do anything with them. They make me giggle, though. I do want, Maury, I'm throwing this curveball at you.
Okay.
But I do want at some point this hour for us to talk about the scariest movies of all time.
Ooh, okay.
Because I don't get to watch scary movies anymore. But I did. E was watching something in the other room, and last week I caught the first hour and a half. Well, it was almost all of the original Halloween, which is really good. And it did a lot to recreate the horror genre. And I'm just curious where the audience is. You can join in on the super text line, and frankly, I'll open up the phone lines on it because we can either do that or we can continue to talk about the Palestinian situation. Or I could talk to you about Joe Biden, which, frankly, that's as scary as it gets, Joe Biden in the White House. So any of those things are up for fair game, 615-737-9986. Of the best, I'll tell you one of the better modern, and it is more of a slasher flick, but it is not the type of slasher flick that the franchise became, is Saw. You ever see Saw?
Seen a couple when they're like 10 now.
First one. Yeah, there is 10.
I think there's 10.
Well, that's what
the
I mean.
10th one just came out.
The first one. The first one, I think, is really good.
That was when it was fresh and unique.
Let me see. Yes. Seen this one.
And there was a. I mean, I don't want to give too much away for those who've not seen it. Maybe you're planning on watching it tonight, but there's a twist.
Yeah.
And you don't. I don't. Did you see it coming? I didn't
He's
see it
been
coming.
dead the whole time, and when the the wedding ring rolls under the chair, and
is there a wedding ring?
Sixth Sense.
Oh yeah, that one. You know what? I thought I watched The Sixth Sense, and when all that was revealed at the end, my thing was that doesn't make it a better movie. It still sucked as a movie. I didn't like it.
It was great.
Did you?
Yeah, and then on the second watching, I'm like, how did I not notice all of this?
Right. I mean, it's pretty obvious in the second. Yeah.
Yeah, and once it's all in context.
You an M. Night Shyamalan fan?
Yes. I even liked that real low-budget movie he did called The Visit.
You like The Village?
No, The Visit.
No, I'm talking about was it called The Village?
Yeah,
you know, the one
I thought The Village was okay. I liked that because of Bryce Dallas Howard, but the story.
They're in modern times.
Yeah, the twist was a little janky, and his
Sorry,
cameo.
did I ruin that?
His cameo was way too artistic.
What was the one with Mel Gibson? That one was good. That's pretty good.
Him in Phoenix.
Joaquin.
Yeah.
Almost anything with Joaquin. No, Halloween created the concept, and then Friday the 13th started doing things with it as well. And maybe these were simultaneous. I might have my timing wrong. The idea that the faceless, emotionless killer. And Michael Myers never ran to kill you because Michael Myers did not feel like he needed to run. And there was something to me that was far more freaky about that.
Yeah.
That Michael Myers never ran anywhere because he knew he didn't have to. He was going to get you. And that idea that he's calm, you can freak out, you can run, you can scream all you want. He'll get you.
Halloween was 1978, and the first Friday the 13th movie was 1980.
And in the first Friday the 13th, that was a good movie. That was a slasher film, and I understand it was too gory for a lot of people. But it also had a premise, I don't want to say believable, but because it was his mother.
Yeah. It was more reasonable.
It was a reasonable premise that she was doing it to get revenge on the
twist,
camp counselors.
The twist at the movie was that it wasn't Michael doing anything. It was his mother doing it.
Right. The first Friday the 13th was, I'm all in on it. Oh, I'm sorry. Are we ruining the film for you?
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. So
well,
just
too bad.
Scratch that off. Okay. It's all good now. Love it.
Have you seen the original Halloween?
Yes.
So good. Donald
Great.
Pleasance in that film is so good. Evil has left here tonight.
Johnny Depp was in the first Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, yeah, he was. He was in bed with blood covered all over him. If I recall correctly. But it's hard to beat The Exorcist. But in terms of what I want to explore are the scariest movie scenes, not necessarily the scariest movies of all time, but the scariest movie scenes, the freakiest movie scenes. I knew when I walked into the theater, I know that there was a portion of the audience that bought into Blair Witch Project, and they tried to make you buy into Blair Witch Project, that it was found footage. And by the time I got to it, it was kind of out there that it wasn't, but that was the concept. I don't give a rip. They set up that whole she made you stand in the corner thing. The end of that, you remember the end of the movie where she's chasing the guy and she's trying to figure out where he is, and you see the camera, and then you see the splash of him standing in the corner with his face in the corner, and then boom, she's down.
Yeah.
Freaky, baby. Give me chill. Give me goosebumps just thinking about it.
The Conjuring.
I've never seen The Conjuring.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't think much of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, guys, come on. That's up there with The Exorcist as far as scary goes.
There is the one scene where the demon shows up in broad daylight behind him at the table. That was a little scary, but the rest of it was like whatever.
See, I never did The Conjuring. See, I don't get the modern ones because he won't allow this in the house.
Oh, no horror.
Like it's not even. Well, I have to sneak it. It's not even that she's watching it. She says bringing that into the house is bringing evil into the house
bad
or something
juju.
or another. Yeah, bad juju into the house, and she will have none of it. So nobody tell her that I watched Halloween the other day.
So wait, you haven't seen a lot of them. Okay, so like Insidious?
Nope.
Oh, Belle, have you seen Insidious?
Yeah.
I love that one. That's my favorite horror movie.
What's the one about the surveillance camera, the
Paranormal Activity?
Paranormal Activity.
Great.
But Blair Witch is close, but Blair Witch cost more. Paranormal Activity has earned more money per capita than any other film.
That only costs like $25,000 per make, whereas Blair Witch was like $250,000 or something.
Wow.
But Blair Witch, oh man, still. But I want to see Paranormal Activity. Hard to beat. All right, so scariest moment in films. I'll give you this is like an ad hoc Friday Mac attack on Tuesday. The reveal in Psycho, when you realize his mother's not alive, that it's all him and it's all in his head. That's pretty good. Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
The original?
Yeah. Oh, well, not the Donald Pleasance version.
Okay, that's the first remake.
Yeah, like 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
And the scene I'm referring to is
at the end when she walks up to him in the Capitol, and that was a freak out
because she's all alone. And she might as well just let him snatch her.
Yeah, at that point, it's like I've totally given up my anonymity. They know I have nowhere to turn.
Yeah, and you have hidden yourself for how long?
Yeah,
after you got separated. Oh, freaky deaky.
And you're going into that scene thinking, oh, he's actually survived. This is great. They're gonna, Then you look at the clock and go, oh, this movie doesn't have much time left. I don't think he's alive.
Yeah, and I know that it's it's most everyone's number one when you talk about scary horror movies, but The Exorcist, when he has to take the demon with him out the window, that's pretty good.
I think the puke in the face was more of a shock.
Well, unedited, even now, it makes me uncomfortable thinking about some of the scenes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And if you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Plus, what was the director's name? Friedrichsen or Fred, whatever it was. He did such a masterful job of using subliminal visuals in that movie to kind of keep you agitated, even during calm and daylight scenes. That it was you just were tense whether you wanted to be or not.
William Friedkin?
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Is Jaws a horror movie?
Of a sort.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like a suspense film.
Yeah.
Right. More a thriller.
Thriller. Yeah.
See, I would look at Silence of the Lambs. Some would call Silence of the Lambs horror. I think Thriller's a little bit different.
Well, it's a subgenre of horror, I think. Because you can't tell me you watching that shark eat Robert Shaw isn't scary as hell when you're 11 years old and seeing that movie the first time.
But my number one, so I got The Reveal in Psycho, Blair Witch is kind of in there, but my number one of all time, and you've got to be of a particular constitution to watch this movie, but 1974 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it's one particular scene. Not the movie itself is, it is what it is. But it's the scene where you first see Leatherface. And this movie's 50 years old, so I feel like I can talk about it openly.
No, you can't. You're going to give it away.
When he drags the girl into the house, and there's all of this noise. I mean, and it's the way that the director did it, where there's all of this noise and commotion and all of this screaming, and I think his chainsaw's on at one point, and then it's off. But there's all of this noise, and he gets her to the steel door, and he slams the steel door shut, and then there's silence.
Yeah. It's like that was almost like the moment you can mark her as dead.
Well, and you're like, what in God's name is going on behind that door?
I've literally never watched that movie all the way through.
You need to. If you've never seen that scene, it'll freak you out. Anyway, you're invited to be a part of that if you so desire. Otherwise, we're going to talk about it anyway for maybe the remainder of the show. I don't know. It's 2:22 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I just thought of another one. Remind me to tell you of another scary scene that I thought of. I don't mean to dominate the conversation, but, there it is. Right now, I want to tell you about Mill Creek View and the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast. He's been described as a conservative advocacy podcast. You've heard Steve Abramowitz on our show with regularity, and I love him, and I love to tell you about his podcast because it's not just politics, although they're frequently the number one show in politics on Podomatic, but they also talk to cultural touchstones in Tennessee and beyond, entertainment figures, authors, artists, and the like, sports figures. They're found on Deezer, iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, and all of your favorite podcast apps. You can also find them on Rumble Video. It is the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast. Steve is CEO and editor-in-chief of the Mill Creek View newspaper. That would be found at mcview.us. That's mcview.us. I go there on a daily basis, and I encourage you to do as well. mcview.us. It's the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast. Check it out today.
The latest in the Israel-Hamas war today, a massive blast has hit Gaza's largest refugee camp. That and more coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock. Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
That's happening in about 3 minutes or so. Thank you, Mac Maury. We are spending some time talking scary movies on this Halloween. If you have scary movie scenes, get them in, 615-737-9986, because the scenes, I don't know. For me, it's a much more robust conversation than scary movies because everybody's got the same scary movies. Exorcist is up there. Psycho's up there. Psycho is scary in as much as what it did not show versus what it did show. Quick trivia for young Mac Maury, who I'm certain your mama taught you this when you were a young boy, Mac, but you've probably forgotten. Do you know what they used for blood? You know what Hitchcock...
Remember, it was a black and white movie.
Black and white movie. The shower scene, it was a pretty famous scene, although they showed really not a lot. It was more sound and quick cuts. And then at the end, you saw her eyeball and you see the blood running down the drain. What was the blood
made of?
Black and white.
Oh, shoot. I've got no idea.
Bell?
Chocolate syrup.
The
only thing in my mind was barbecue sauce.
Well.
Probably would have worked, too.
Probably would have worked, too. Yeah. I thought of two more scenes, and I don't want to steal anyone else's thunder because I get excited about these things, but I thought of two other scenes. One, have you ever seen The Omen?
I think so. Let me look it up.
See, you and I need to get together and watch scary movies, Maury, because you could point me in the direction of more modern scary movies that I've never seen because I've not seen really anything in the last 15 years. And I could point you to the old ones.
Yes.
My parents went to see The Omen in the theaters, and they came home acting like it was the scariest thing they had ever seen in their life. And when I got a little older and I could watch it myself, I remember sitting there going, where's the scary part?
All right, here for me, and I just get freaked out by the more creepy stuff when the woman kills herself at the mansion at his birthday party, and she looks at him and says, "It's for you, Damien. It's all for you." And then jumps.
Yeah.
Ooh, wow.
Because she seems so...
gives me the heebie-jeebies.
She seems so not resigned. She just seems sort of agreeable to the fate.
Almost happy.
Yeah.
Almost happy to the fate. And then there's a scene, and I promise that some of you probably... Well, no, there's a lot of you commenting on it. I'll get to maybe your comments coming up in a moment. One more, in The Shining. With everything else going on in The Shining. I mean, everybody talks about the axe, which I get.
Great. Oh, that scared the hell out of me the first time.
You don't see it coming.
That's a legit jump scare.
That's a jump. You don't see it coming. But for me, it was the reveal of what he's been writing. I mean,
was that really weirded you out.
Have you seen The Shining, young Maury?
Oh, yeah.
Then you know. Yeah, I mean, all throughout the beginnings of the maze, he's
all working, no play.
He's working, tip-tapping away.
Yep,
he's working on that novel, and then when she sees it, and it's like,
it's like a manuscript of the same thing,
written in different formats, and it's like, he's been crazy the whole time. Holy shnikes. All right, 2:30, Super Talk 99.7. I'd be crazy if I didn't go to news right now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thirty minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories right now. 50 degrees and sunny in Music City. A freeze warning will go back into effect in Middle Tennessee starting at 10 p.m. tonight. Full weather forecast in 2 minutes. As the ongoing ground offensive in Gaza continues today, White House National Security spokesman John Kirby says a few dozen additional trucks of aid were able to enter the Rafah crossing overnight, bringing some desperately needed aid into Gaza. Karen Travers.
The White House says the last 24 hours have marked the highest single delivery day of humanitarian assistance into Gaza so far. National Security spokesman John Kirby.
I'm pleased to say that another 66 trucks got into Gaza over the last 24 hours. With life-saving humanitarian assistance, including food, water, and medicine.
Still, Kirby said that volume is a, quote, trickle compared to what needs to get in, and said the U.S. will continue working to facilitate more aid getting to those who need it most.
And in that war today, a massive blast hit Gaza's largest refugee camp. And we're now hearing the body-worn camera audio from police on Maui as they race to evacuate Lahaina as the town burned down back in August. Alex Stone.
Around Lahaina, Maui police went racing from door to door, alerting families inside, some elderly, that flames were spreading in high wind and they needed to get out.
Hello, gotta evacuate, got fire.
The audio from police body-worn cameras being heard for the first time.
Come on.
The strong wind buffeting the officers as they race to get people out and to force open locked gates.
Let's go!
Nearly 3 months later, the number of unaccounted for is down to 4, and 99 people are confirmed dead.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief is located in Franklin. It is a scary prospect to consider. You have to live the rest of your life with pain in your back or in your neck or on your hips or your knees. Well, you don't. And I'll tell you, the Dr. Gill Center has helped people who thought that it was their reality for the rest of their lives get to a pain-free life without having to take constant pills, without having to worry about injections, and certainly without having to consider surgery. That should be always a last resort. The Dr. Gill Center has been here and doing just that for well over 30 years, 3 decades of service to their community. And they have a team of experts ready and willing and available to you. Dr. Wendy helped me alleviate my neck pain. She's helped me with my lower back pain, and she can help you. I'm a patient, and I'm also a spokesperson for the Dr. Gill Center. Give them a call and schedule an appointment. Say pain relief, and you get a special discount on your first appointment. Call at 615-882-4838, 882-4838. It's the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. Okay, maybe I went down this road too soon, but I can't get off the scary movies now. Now, the scariest thing that I could discuss on the show today would be Joe Biden and his inability to understand what the hell is going on around him and the void that leaves in the rest of the world. I could talk to you about the scariness of the Israeli-Hamas situation. Obviously, that's a very serious matter and not to be joked about. But we've been talking about scary movies on this Halloween, how you spend your Halloween. How do you, Maury, you going trick-or-treating? You're going out, aren't you? You going out? No? Oh.
You're not taking Hannah to a Halloween party?
No.
Do you guys not do Halloween parties? I thought everybody does. I thought all the 20-somethings did Halloween parties.
Yeah, we usually do. We just, didn't have.
Well, you're going to, let me guess. If you had a Halloween party to go to, you'd go as a sexy nurse?
Charlie Brown.
Sexy Charlie Brown?
That's it.
Sexy,
you got me.
Sexy polecat? Sexy lawyer? Have you noticed how, I mean, they're all, like, look up sexy and whatever you put behind sexy, Halloween costume, and you'll find it.
Well, even if you go to Spirit Halloween to try and get a costume, it's like, what? I just want to be like a policeman. Why can't...
No, you'll be a sexy policeman and you'll like it.
Why?
I don't want to be
I'm enforcing the law.
And I'll be following around going, cuff me.
Oh, I bet you will. So nothing, just lazing around?
Yeah, maybe watch a scary movie. I gotta record a podcast, man. I got work to do.
If of any of the movies that you've heard about that you've not heard, has anyone caught your fancy that you might want to watch?
What was the one you? Oh, The Omen. I hadn't seen that.
It's good. Good. The Omen is it's about the devil's baby. It's about Damien, son of the devil, and it's pretty.
The
good.
Antichrist returns to the earth.
It's about the Antichrist, and that's another scene that always creeped me out was when he was showing off in class, like with the professor. Was that the Omen? That was the Omen 2. I'm thinking of the Omen 2.
Remember
that is the Omen 2. You ever see the Omen 2? He's gone to
clearly the kid doesn't die in the first one.
No. Yeah, no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. The second one, he's in military school, and the devil has provided all these protectors around him, and he's in class, and Damien just starts showing off in class because he knows everything the professor knows, and there's a great scene there. A lot of you have sounded off about your fine scenes that you think are the scariest. There's a new version of The Omen with Liv Schreiber. The original's better with Gregory Peck's great in the original. Philip says that you should. That's a great suggestion, Maury. If you're going out tonight, just go to the store and get like some steak strips. And just attach little pieces of steak strip all over your person. And your cougar chow. Huh?
Hannah will love it.
That's the thing, though, is he doesn't need the steak strips to still be cougar chow.
That's true. I mean, that would actually be pretty good. You could just dress as yourself, and Hannah could just put little ears on, and she's the cougar.
Yeah.
And she could be the cougar. Mm-hmm. 4410 or 5410, pardon me, says Dirty Dancing was kind of scary. Nobody puts baby in the corner. Children of the Corn. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right.
He wants you too, Malachi. Pretty scary. The Ring, I never saw The Ring. See, that's one of those that I missed, but I've heard that it's pretty.
I've heard it's really good.
It's the most impactful scene is when she crawls out of the television, and it lasts. The rest of the movie is just like, eh.
Hellraiser, the scene where the dude gets ripped apart with the fish hooks. Yeah. And he quotes the Bible.
The original one where they're bringing body parts back to rebuild him.
Oh, no, yes.
Yeah.
Well, because she kills her husband and gives and then he quotes the Bible. Jesus wept.
Yeah.
In Hell Night, the young lady's running for her life on inside perimeter of the wall and turns the corner to fall through the trapdoor in the yard. You know she's gone at that point. Yeah, I've never seen the movie, so I'm at a loss. Matt, when E says no, that's an executive decision. You're right. Matt Murphy, what about any Stephen King movies? I was a huge Stephen King book fan when I was a kid. The movies consistently disappointed, especially if you read the books first.
Heard that from so many people.
I had a difficult time appreciating what my favorite director of all time is Stanley Kubrick. I had a difficult time appreciating what Stanley Kubrick did with The Shining because it was so. It went against so many of the concepts
unnecessarily
presented in the book. But I now have a new appreciation for The Shining because Kubrick recognized that he could not possibly fit all of the nuance of how the hotel was doing to Jack Torrance, what it was doing to Jack Torrance in a movie in 2.5 hours. So he decided just to leave all of that up to you. And he compressed it all.
Yeah, but to totally change the ending the way he did, come on.
The boiler. See, he eliminated the boiler.
Yeah.
The entire concept of the boiler was gone from. But I've learned to dig, and it is creepy because it is so out there and open, the shot of the party from 1929.
Yeah.
And Jack Torrance is right there up front and center, like, wait a minute.
And it's been hanging up on that wall the entire time that you've been watching this movie.
Right. So it goes back to what the ghost told him is, oh, and that's
You've always been the caretaker.
You've always been the caretaker here. What? And it's almost the way that Jack Nicholson says it is almost comical when he goes, I know you. You killed your wife and children and chopped them up into little bits. Yeah. And someone brings up The Thing. That's a pretty good one. 1982. Kurt Russell. Yeah. That's creepy. That was just more gory than anything, though.
Yeah, but it was really suspenseful because you could never figure out who was next and who the thing was.
And am I remembering the end of that? You don't see him die at the end.
No, it was him, and it's him and the other guy sitting there drinking outside in the freezing cold, talking to each other with both of them going, you're thinking, well, one of these guys has to be the monster, so who is it? And then they don't tell you.
And then it ends.
Yeah.
That's good. Great remake from the 1950s. Silver Bullet's one that creeps me out. Silver Bullet. So in the pantheon of Stephen King movies, I would say that they began doing Stephen King movies a lot better in more recent times. And it's when they figured out that they needed to do the short stories into movies, like The Shawshank Redemption's a fabulous movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a horror movie, but it's from a short story. The Shining's pretty good. It's up there.
Fantastic.
I liked it as a teenager. I don't know. I haven't seen it since then, but I thought Christine was really enjoyable.
Christine is a fabulous. Once again, it pales in comparison to the movie. But there, you talk about creepy scenes. When Mooch, one of the bad guys, he's going home from the concert and he's got all that change in his pocket, and you hear, oh, that's a great scene. I'd forgotten about this one. Where you kind of see the car like lurking around, and he's getting out of the truck and he's walking, and then you see him. You hear the music, and it's and you just hear it in the background, and then you kind of see the car, and then you see it's idling in the background, and the Mooch kid goes, "Hey Cunningham, is that you? You ain't mad, are you?" And as soon as he says that, the lights come on.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is not going to end well for you.
The original Pet Sematary, too.
They come back.
Mm-hmm.
Fred Gwynn is
great in that. Amazing.
In that film. The thing is, they come back. Fabulous horror movies. Cape Fear was a good horror movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Counselor.
It got just beat to death when it came out, but I enjoyed it, and I still think I'd like it if I watched it again. But Maximum Overdrive.
I'm concerned that if I watched Maximum Overdrive again, I would think it was stupid. Because
there was a certain degree
kind of
of
stupid.
There was a certain degree of cheese to it, just based on the subject matter, because you can't really get overly serious with that. It's going to kind of collapse under its own weight, but I still thought it was a fun, scary movie.
Like, I understand, like, the internal combustion engine becomes alive kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, like, everything became alive.
Plus, that AC/DC theme was just amazing.
Oh, well, that was good. Who made who?
Yeah.
But you kind of lose me when, like, the Coke machine is alive and he's spitting out Cokes and hitting people with the Cokes. Or the lawnmower that's chasing the people and eventually runs.
There's another one, Lawnmower Man.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Anyway, enjoy a scary movie with a loved one of your choosing. On the Christine front, Christine, great adaptation, although it pales in comparison to the book. So I would encourage you to read the book, and you let me know. 248 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We'll check in with Brian Wilson, let you know any updates on what's going on in the news this afternoon, and find out what's happening on the drive next.
More money could be on the way to Israel and Ukraine, a police chase in Tennessee, plus an update in the Idaho college murders. Those stories and more coming up. 3 o'clock, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Man, the super text line has been incredibly active, especially in the last hour of the show. We veered away from political talk and talked about scary things like scary movies. A lot of your suggestions are right on point. Cujo is a great scary movie and a great adaptation of a Stephen King book. My favorite Stephen King story involves Cujo. Stephen King was so strung out on drugs in the 1980s, he reflected in an interview on how badly he was strung out on drugs. And he said, I recently pulled Cujo off the shelf and I read it. It's a really good book. I wish I remember writing it. Brian Wilson joins us from The Drive to talk about all things. You know, the scariest thing we could talk about, stuff going on in Washington, D.C.
Man, I am telling you, there's some hearings today on Capitol Hill, quite scary when they started asking really tough questions about something that we've been talking about for some time here in talk radio, and that's how many people are coming across the border that we don't know anything about. I mean, the FBI director says we're going to have the possibility of terrorist attacks on the homeland. And they are preparing for it, but they didn't do anything to try to stop the flow of people coming across the border who might be terrorists. And so it's at least they're starting to have a conversation about it in Washington, and it is scary for the homeland.
Oh, well, and what's frightening is when the Democrats demand of Republicans that they include in funding for Israel and Ukraine additional funding for border security, they're really not talking about border security. They're talking about processing people who are already here.
Yeah, the 1,500 new, or maybe it's more than that, but I think it's 1,500 more agents who will just be put to work processing paperwork. So I don't know that that's going to really solve the border problem.
The big question on all of my listeners' lips about Brian Wilson, Watertown, Tennessee, and the drive. Will you have trick-or-treaters, Brian? Do you know? Were you there last year?
I was here last year for Halloween, and we had a good smattering. But since then, I think we've developed sort of a reputation in the community of going out and like we have a 12-foot skeleton in the front yard, and the front door is all decorated with pumpkins and fall leaves and the whole 9 yards. So, and a lot of people have been driving by to look at the skeleton. So we think we're going to have a few more this year, and we've prepared several bags of candy just in case.
And what is, if you have one, your favorite scary movie of all time?
My favorite sort of Halloweenish movie is not scary. It's Young Frankenstein. I love that movie more than I can quote lines out of that all day long. It's really one of my favorites. I think if it was a scary movie, I don't know that it's really considered sort of a Halloweenish movie, but The Exorcist is terrifying.
Oh, it is, man.
And I've interviewed the writer of the book, and it's it was one of the more fascinating interviews that I've ever conducted. Actually, fascinating story about how he came to do this book when he was at Georgetown.
And wasn't it? It was really, really loosely based on the story of an actual exorcist. I think I have that right.
According to him, it wasn't loosely based. It was very much based on
there you go.
on an actual exorcism. And that one is just terrifying to me.
You just have me thinking of that scene in Young Frankenstein where whose brain is it? Abby
Normal.
Abby Normal, I think. Well, we'll be listening to The Drive this afternoon from 3 until 7, and that comes right after McMorrie's News, and that is coming in mere seconds on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hope your Halloween is a wonderful one. Stop by my house, and I'll give you some candy before you head off to Brian Wilson's and see his 12-foot skeleton. Until tomorrow, folks, at high noon, have a great afternoon. Hug your loved ones. Happy Halloween. So long.